Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the Parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the Parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot.
Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you. Hello and welcome to World Inkers Network, sponsored by Parrot TV. I'm Dustin Pickering. I am your noble and honest host. And one quick announcement, we have decided to move the show to 2 specific days of the week. That is going to be Tuesday at 2 p.m. and Saturday at 10 a.m. So for those that have been regular viewers, we needed to cut down a little bit to manage our time and so forth. And we need some more people to be interested in this presentation so we can do more work with the public. And so just please get in touch with us if you're interested in being interviewed. So remember that is going to be on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time and Saturday 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. So we're going to talk a little bit about fiction and narrative today. It's going to be sort of a presentation to discuss a little bit about the importance of fiction and narrative, as well as the structure. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about World Inkers magazine and some changes undergoing on that, as well as some news regarding World Inkers monthly magazine. So what I want to start off with is this interesting quote I found from Friedrich Nietzsche out of The Will to Power. He says, "The world regarded as a self-generating work of art." And I think that's a fascinating quote. And of course, a work of art by nature is both chaotic and structured. In my opinion, it's got a lot of mess and a lot of balance. So it has to have both. It has to, in order for someone to understand and for it to have cohesion, enough for someone to be able to read it and comprehend a work of fiction, there has to be some sort of cohesion to it, a unified body of thought or something in there that you can make your own representation from. So there has to be some sort of agreed upon principle, in my opinion. And now the modern structure is very different. But what I think is interesting is the fact that narrative is so important in general to us as humans, because we have to use narrative to communicate and to give structure to our society. So all these competing narratives out there, give structure to society. They help us understand ourselves. They give us a little bit of momentum and motivation. Religion is narrative. A lot of people don't understand it that way, but it is in fact narrative. And I want to take a quote from a book called Narrative Psychology by Julia Vasilieva. Narrative accounts of people's lives constructed as evolving stones imbued with a sense of integrity and continuity represent the core of personality. That's from Narrative Psychology is the name of the book. And I thought that was a fascinating way of presenting us as people and how important narrative is and how important fiction is in constructing narrative to grant us a basic an ideology as well as a kind of theory of existence, I guess you could call it, something that gives us order and meaning to our lives. And why do we even need meaning? Why is this important? Well, because life is extremely chaotic. It seems like, every day something new. It's also very monotonous. So it's like a work of fiction in and of itself. And as the beginning quote I quoted from Nietzsche, life is like a completely evolving work of art. It's consistently changing around. It's like I always like to say that it's like a stage in which the props constantly change, but the stage stays the same. And so that's one of the things I like to kind of tease about life, is how much of it is in fact ordered and chaotic. So I think this is really important to discuss why we need narratives. We would be overwhelmed without them because they give order and meaning to our lives. They help organize our experience of self and society, as I've mentioned, and they direct our attention to pertinent matters. Let's take Charles Dickens, for instance, and his narratives, and how they helped Victorian England reform certain institutions so that we could advance forward and progress as a species. So fiction can be a very progressive thing. It can draw attention to issues that we're not focused on, that a lot of people would rather not discuss. You can put in a book something, very private matter. Also, it can be very personal, that will draw attention to certain issues in society and the structure of society that need to be addressed, as Dickens did with like novels such as Oliver Twist and Tale of Two Cities. And so that's an important factor in changing reality and making reality better, is in fact telling the story of what your experiences as well as what you've seen, so that way you can actually put this in a book where people that are reading it, they will start to recognize that the more popular the fiction gets, they will recognize their problems with things that they will address, that will come to a consensus. It'll help motivate people, as well as it will bring them to a knowledge to issues that are not. It's like sometimes movies do this too, and the movies are narratives as well, and they're fictionalized a lot of times, most of the time. Movies and plays and all kinds of art contain narrative arcs. And so this is very important to understand the idea that basically, how important narrative is to the human mind. So I think that's a very important first step in our presentation. And as I mentioned, personality, how narrative helps shape and integrate the personality. And that's how we navigate our reality. And it gives us a sense to our locus of experience, So I think that's a very important aspect to our ability to exist and survive and thrive in a world that's basically we don't have that much control over as individuals, but yet we live as individuals. And so I think it's extremely important to recognize that the act of writing, as a form of therapy, as a form of sense making of reality, is a very powerful tool for both the writer and the reader to escape into a fantasy world that they would rather be part of. And it's a very totally voluntary act. You can sit down and read a book and just be lost for hours in something going on in the book and not even know where you're at. So that's a wonderful thing about fiction. So we can go ahead and go with the presentation of what the structure of fiction, of a lot of fiction books are. So if MUTIU would like to bring that up, our PowerPoint presentation. This is a plot structure. As you see, exposition, which basically introduces the story, gives you the idea of what the conflict will be. The rising action, and the characters and their various their various interactions and so forth, and how that comes into play to bring in a story. And then you have the climax, which everyone knows what a climax is, right? Climax will be when the story changes, when you're introduced to the point where something must happen in order to shift the story to its an eventual direction. This is a classical view of fiction. Then there's the falling action, where things start to wind down. Then the resolution and the denouement and so forth, where the story actually finds itself resolved. And of course, resolution, that's pretty simple. So that's the plot structure of a classical narrative.
I'm actually looking at something here. If you look at the aspect of the expository, that is the opening part of narrative writing. This is the part where, as a fictional writer, you set what your setting, your atmosphere, the time of the story, the atmosphere, and even the condition of the environment as at the time the story starts. So that opening, you also need to introduce your main character and the theme of the story. What is the central theme? From the problem identified or the challenge being faced by the main character at the initial stage, once you introduce that main character, we can easily understand whether it's going to be something that is going to be light or something that is going to be complicated. And when you move on to beyond that, aside from the main character and aside from the setting, of course, the theme will guide us to know exactly. But you're not supposed to say directly. There are indirect method of showing what the story will be all about, and then you go into the development of the story. That's when you start introducing a new character that will help you to develop the story, coming up with something that will back up the main character, the theme that you have introduced, and then they're going to help us to go to that rising action. That is where you start complicating the problem. That's after, and of course, as you're doing that, you are creating suspense, because as you have the rising action, your readers will be interested in knowing what is going to happen next again and again. So you are going to be bringing more minor problem by introducing new characters, and then you move on to the stage where it will reach the peak of the story, where readers will want to know what will happen next. That is the climax. When they get to that stage, the interest in the story will be so high. They want to know whether you'll be able to solve the problem or the problem will not be solved. In the modern time, most times we create everlasting suspense, but in the classical structure, we solve the problem without coming back again and again. So this is the pattern. Then the falling action is the anticlimax side. That is where you identify where the story will be gradually being solved. If you like, in the modern time, you get to resolution. But as far as the classical structure is concerned, nothing like resolution there. A good example of this is what you see in the next slide here. You see, I think I can hand over that to you. Over to you, Dustin.
Well, as it says, exposition, you have the incident that begins the story. The characters are introduced, the settings, the goals, motivations, stakes established. So, you know, the protagonist faces the enemy, which is the conflict. You know, you want to open the conflict and move into the person, whether it's in conflict with society or nature, maybe a supernatural force, technology, depends on your genre. It could be science fiction. It could be more of a fantasy based or an eco book of some kind. You know, anything that you know, what you want to do is construct the story according to what you want to say, as far as, you know, the politics of it or the theme of your story. So, you know, as the rising action continues, you have the conflicts and struggles that interfere with the hero's journey through the protagonist's journey. What is going on in the story that will guide the reader to contemplate your theme? I mean, this is a very important thing. Is so you want to make people think about your underlying motivation for writing the story. So as it says here, the stakes: what will the protagonist win or lose? Life, love, health, happiness, freedom, opportunity, sanity, money, pride, friend or family, career, any number of those things, depends on what you want to say. And then the climax is when, of course, becomes as it says, the turning point there. This is where the conflict is resolved and things start to sort of relax and take back down to the falling action, where the character is, I guess you could call it, processing what happens, and you know, you come into this is, I think, and from what I write, I tend to, you know, use the falling action segment in my structure to kind of make it a little bit more obvious what I'm trying to say in general. I don't, of course, as MUTIU has said, you don't want to be overt or direct about how you what theme you're pursuing in your book. You do want it to be something that the reader can think about. You want to do a lot of showing and not telling, as they say. Well, in the falling action, the mysteries are solved, the loose threads tied up. You don't want to leave any loose ends in your story that leave the reader thinking, well, what's next? Something that if you leave the reader wondering what's going to happen next, at least have a sequel. And we all know sequels are kind of boring, to be kind of honest, most of the time. Just kidding. Some of them are very good. There may be, as it says there, a brief conflict, or it prepares the reader for the end of the story. And then the resolution, or denouement, is the problem is resolved. The enemy is vanquished, as it says. The goal is reached or not, depending on what you want to say. And now you have the new status quo of the story. So that's a basic, the gist of a story or a narrative arc, as they call it. So you want to be able to construct a good story. And a lot of times in my talks with novelists, especially, and short story writers, one of the things that I've heard them say is that the characters take them over. So the characters become, the imagination just like is invigorated with these characters. And so you see what happens. A lot of times you find you're surprised by what they do. So this, you don't want to be, you don't want to be too plan too much ahead. I think, in my opinion, you don't want to have everything detailed. You just want to have a general idea of how the structure flows, where you're going with the story, and have your characters. You want to make them fruitful and have a lot of a dimension to them. So you want to develop their personality through the story. There should be a change that happens. For the most part, I would say any kind of change in the characters' nature, or they learn something new, they learn something fresh, or something should be happening to the character that makes the reader intrigued by what's going on. So that's basically a general plot and narrative arc structure, as they call it. So unless MUTIU has something else you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, I just remember something now. As you're introducing the character, one of the most important thing there is that you don't just mention their name. You need to describe them physically. If you're talking about a character that is sovereign, you don't describe the character like someone who has already overfed himself. You need to let us know that maybe the character is skinny and it's suffering from classical or certain disease, something that is going to capture the emotional part of the reader, an emotive way of describing your character. So it shouldn't be just the name is this, is just tall. No, there should be a kind of vivid description in a way that your writer will have the imagery of your character within them. So that's one thing that is very essential. Every character, whether minor, whether major, you introduce, you must describe them vividly. Apart from that, even the setting, your location. As I was talking, I talked about the setting being divided into three: the place, the time. The last one I didn't mention is the location. If you're describing a room, describe it vividly. The wall, use the five senses to describe the thing. How does the word look like? Is it kind of what the petrol paint that is used? Is it something smooth, or is something that is rough? When you touch it, how does it look like? What kind of color is used? How about when you enter the room? What do you see first? How do you describe the bed if it is the bedroom? Is it a small bedroom, bed, or is it just the floor side? How does the wall? What are the pictures that you have on the wall? Even the smell that you have within as you enter the room, something like that will capture it, help you to cage your readers to go along with you as you're presenting your story. So this is very important. If you want to be a narrative writer, you must be very good at using adverbs and adjectives extensively. It's not just only writing sentences and expect that the story will look very interesting. If you are not very good at the use of adjectives, the use of adverbs to make your writing more interesting, you will definitely lose your reader. And a good writer must be able to sustain the reader from the beginning to the end of the story. And as story writer, if you are creating suspense and you want it to go properly, your mastery of the language that you're using is very, very important. That's just what I wanted to add. In case you have anything, you can add to that.
And I think it's important that the setting, as you've described, also helps. And you can use the setting as a tool to develop the character as well. So that there's interactions with the setting that create a character as he's developing throughout the story. I mean, I don't know, maybe you can have a chainsaw in the room, and then at some point he needs the chainsaw, and you just mentioned the chainsaw in passing, and then that way the readers are aware that there's a chainsaw. Now let's not talk about what the chainsaw does, but I'm just kidding. You can do a lot of things with a chainsaw. You can hack up the apartment. If it's in an apartment, you can just, if you're mad at your landlord, just take it to the landlord's property, or your own property for that matter. But yeah, just in seriousness, some things in the setting are very important, and they're not trivial. You want to make the setting part of the story, as if the interactions the characters have with the setting is also extremely important to the function of the narrative.
Right, and I think that the time, the type of your story will also determine the time you are going to choose for the story. As a fictional writing, if you want to write a tragedy, something that is a little bit scary, you can set your story at night when it is dark. That story will be very interesting. But if it's something that is very light, your story is light, the atmosphere of your story is not so dark, it's not something that will be so scary to your reader. You don't want to make them to feel sad. Make it during the day. It might be at a party, a family party, a friend party, etc. During the day, when everything will be clear, where there will be no issues or problem, etc. So timing is also to be considered when you're dealing with the type of story you want to talk about. If it's something very, very scary, or something that is sad, if it is tragedy, it would be ideal to have it at night, a lonely environment. Even if it's not at night, it can be a lonely environment, in the bush. A bushy environment with snake, all sorts of dangerous animals can be there. It can be during the day, or sometimes it can be extremely sunny. If it is sunny, that means the condition of the main character would not be would not be so smooth. So you need to understand what kind of atmosphere you're going to use to get that thing done, and to make your reader to feel with you the kind of emotive message you want to convey to them. I think it's time for us to go for a break, right?
And if anybody out there is watching right now and like to leave us some comments or questions, then feel free to do so during the show. We'll put you on the spot here and put your comments on the show. So yes, let's take a break. Let's take a brief break from World Inkers, and we'll be right back after this. Are you curious about financial literacy? Then take a look at Professor Anthony Rivecchio's new program on Parrot TV. It's called Financial Focus University. This is an excellent program to learn about questions related to your own finances post-COVID, if how you can manage your money, how you can work with your tax situation. And this is an excellent and informative discussion of financial literacy. With Professor Anthony Rivecchio, your financial problems will be solved at Parrot TV with Financial Focus University. And you might be asking yourself why we're talking about fiction. Well, we're looking for fiction writers to bring on the program. We've had a lot of poets here on the show. We've had a few fiction writers. We don't mind what genre you're working in. If you're doing science fiction, you're doing ecological fiction, you're doing some political thrillers or suspense or horror fiction, anything. We want to get our fiction writers out there who are have not been on the program to come on here and talk about their craft with us. So we definitely want to get guys out there involved who are writing fiction, and girls as well, women and men both. And of course, if you're writing fiction and you're out there and you're watching the show today and you've been writing fiction for some time, we'd love to hear some of your comments on the craft of fiction. What does it mean to you? What does narrative mean? How does it work for you? as a writer. And again, on the program, we'd love to have you here on this World Inkers Network program to interview about your books, about your life story as how you became a fiction writer. So we're still looking for poets as well, and any other kind of creative writer out there to interview on World Inkers Network. So you guys out there, just help us out a little bit. Tell us what you think, as you're going along here. And you guys are wonderful. Just leave some comments. If you're out there watching right now, we'd love to hear what you have to say. So MUTIU, do you have anything you want to add to that? You're muted. Sorry. You mute to you.
Well, I was just looking at, life itself, as we say in literature, that literature is just life. It does not only mirrors life, it is life itself. As the biologists we say that they study life. Literature itself is life. So if you really want to be a biologist, you must know exactly what is going on in the literary world, because that's where they tell you everything that is happening within an individual and even outside the individual, the environment, etc. So as we're talking about the structure we just displayed, one thing that just struck me is that you're going to notice that everything in life has the beginning, and the beginning will take you to certain stage, and life itself is complication. It's complicated. It has a lot of challenges. So as a writer following the classical approach, we're going to be looking at other approaches in the subsequent episode that we'll be having. This is going to be informative. This is the informative part of our show. Sometimes we're going to be coming up with different parts. This same structure is used in dramatic writing. In drama, you use it can be 3 acts. You can have 5 acts. In the past, they used to have these two approaches. Either they structure using this pattern to have 3 acts or 5 acts. And within the 5 acts, there are a lot of things that are expected to be followed. So in the subsequent episode, we're going to focus on the structure of dramatic writing too. It's not just only the fictional writing. And as I was talking, I just also remember that this show, as Dustin has said earlier, we've decided to have it for 2 days. That's on Saturday and on Tuesday, as you have said. And this, we're going to make sure we utilize our time judiciously to come up with something that is going to be lasting for you. So if you have not been watching World Inkers Network, we've come again for you, to help you, to assist you, to give you the platform if you're a writer. If you're not a writer, you have a lot to learn with us. A lot of things to learn with us. Dustin himself is a writer, is a publisher, It's also a poet. So in everything that we're doing, if you're just saying asking questions from writers, it's not just writing, it's asking with his experience as a writer, as a publisher, as a literary activist. You can say that what we're doing now is a literary activism. We're trying as much as we can, from our no time we find time, to give the voice to creative writers across the globe, regardless of where you are located, your condition. We don't ask for money. So we believe that that's one way we can contribute to the literary world. In that way, we are helping the world. Whether you are literary in terms of creativity, you have the idea of writing, or you're interested in building your writing world as a layperson, this is the only platform in the world where you can get anything literary, anything creative, where you can learn more about life, how to live in this complicated life through those who are already experienced it, the young and the old. So we don't care whether you are highly academically sounded or not, as long as you have the interest in writing or you have started writing, you have the voice to convey your message beyond just the paper. Because without considering the modern system, if you rely on giving your mind to your reader through paper alone, it might be very difficult for you to reach a lot of people. But if you come online like this, people can see you, and then you can give them even summary of the content of your story or your poem or your play. I'm very, very sure that they will love to check again and again the content of your writing. So this is why we give the voice to creative writers. And we know Parrot TV is meant for giving the voice to the voiceless. The voiceless in the society is an alternative media platform. It's not a mainstream media platform. The mainstream media platform will never give you that opportunity to convey your message. And that's why you need to always get in touch with us, and we'll definitely give you the platform. So over to you, Dustin.
Well, let's talk about World Inkers Monthly Magazine. I have edition 1 here. This is the one with Ron Whitehead on the cover, as you see. If you have not purchased a copy, you must. It's a beautiful edition, and it's just packed. See how much text is in that, and there's pictures and advertisements. So this is an official magazine. So this is a wonderful way of, when you guys get on there and see this right now. I also want to mention that World Inkers Monthly Magazine, we have decided that we want to do a quarterly magazine instead of a monthly magazine after this edition comes out, which it has after it's past time. We're going to, instead of doing one per month, we're going to do it per quarter. So keep an eye out on the announcements regarding themes and so forth on the World Inkers Magazine. Edition number 2 is out with the top 10 2022 literary luminary women amongst the established writers, as well as the lesser known writers out there. We also have a list of 70 literary lionesses, and we can share that list pretty soon with you guys if you're interested. And we're glad to support women writers as well as male writers and everybody out there who is doing creative work. You guys are just wonderful. Just keep it up, and don't forget to pass your work our way, or get in touch with us on this program as far as being interviewed. Remember, you can get in touch with me, Dustin Pickering, Literary Corner at NewYorkParrot.com. So this monthly magazine is beautiful. It's got some great articles and interviews. We're going to do interviews in this magazine as well, print edition interviews on various subjects. We have the new edition has some Angie Mack with talking about women in the blues, for instance, and some of the challenges that are faced by that are pushed on from society to women writing music and so forth. And so that's a wonderful article to look into. The wonderful interview with Angie Mack, who herself is a musician and has actually been kind enough to give us our jingle that you hear at the beginning of the program. So that's her voice you're hearing. So Angie Mack, thank you so much for being part of the program and helping and supporting us. So MUTIU, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, well, March as the Women's Month, we dedicated the series 2, the second series of the magazine, to women generally. So, and you'll notice that the second one has Jill, Sharon, Kemalmer, just as we have Ron Whitehead in the first one. The second one is is Jill. If you know Jill, you'll know that she's a compassionate woman, a very dedicated literature and literature, and she has just published a book recently. And despite some of the challenges she faces, she tries as much as possible to help others. And this is why we dedicated the front page to her alone. You see a picture with our quarterly literary parrot, which I was about to tell you. And this literary parrot is going to be published by the end of this month. And of course, the approach we use is different. We don't need anyone to just send anything to us. If you have been interviewed on our shows, that means you are automatically going to be in that anthology. That's different from the magazine. Remember, we've got the series 1, the series 2 of the literary parrots. And this is going to be series 3. Am I right, Dustin?
Yes.
Yeah, so series 3 is the one we're going to work on. By the end of this month, we should have been able to finalize the structure, and we're going to release that. So regularly, you're going to have things from us. And if you're a writer and you don't have anywhere to publish your work, get in touch with us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. info.worldinkers@gmail.com or publication.worldinkers@gmail.com. One of these, we're going to make sure we get in touch with you and we'll help you to publish your work without any stress. So please take your time to get in touch with us and we will definitely help you. You can see the publication. The work is so fantastic. From the cover page, you just have an option. You will just want to get the graphs of the content of what we have there with great writers. And the magazine itself, what makes it different is that we have academic writing, you have interviews, you have fictional writing, you have visuals writing. I mean, I'm talking about artistic work. We have paints within the book itself. We have all forms of writing in the magazine. And if you are a writer, you've not had the opportunity of promoting your work, we're giving you opportunity to promote your work free of charge. You're not paying anything. This is another way for us to contribute to the literary world, free of charge. So for writers, you have nothing to pay for that. But if you want us to regularly, you can also support us. There's nothing bad in that. If you want this kind of project to continue, of course, we need you to help us. But if you feel you need help, we are ready to assist you too with regards to promoting your work within the books that we're publishing. I'm not talking about the anthology in this case, but in the magazine. But as far as the anthology is concerned, we will definitely get in touch with you if you have been interviewed on our show. And this is going to be regular. It's going to be quarterly. As we have the quarterly magazine, we also have the quarterly anthology. So what makes this very interesting is that we will give the voice to everyone as far as the magazine is concerned. And if you are lucky and you've been able to contact us, we put you on the screen. Just know that however your work is, that means we trust you, we believe in your work. We will definitely get in touch with you so that you can send us whatever you feel you want us to publish in the anthology with your name credited. We'll definitely give you that voice. That's what we do. So, and I think I have to hand over to you, Dustin.
You can support us with voluntary donations at paypal.me/nyparrot, as you see there at the bottom of the screen. That's a wonderful way to support this programming and support our endeavors to promote literature. So if you're out there and you're watching today and you want to do something helpful for the literary cause, paypal.me/nyparrot. And you can donate any amount you feel comfortable with. Hopefully $20,000 won't hurt you, Yeah, it wouldn't hurt me either, to be perfectly honest. Yes, and you can also get in touch with me, Dustin Pickering, at Literary Corner at newyorkparrot.com in order to get in touch with me for an interview. Send a bio in third person in short, about 100 words. And send a headshot and also a couple of samples of your writing so I can look at what you do and have an idea of some questions to ask you. So go ahead and, you guys out there watching today, don't forget to get in touch with us at Literary Corner at newyorkparrot.com. So that'll be anytime you want to get in touch with me, that's the way to do it. And we'll be collecting submissions for New York Parrot again pretty soon. So you guys out there with socially relevant or politically motivated contemporary issue kind of related literature, poetry specifically, or short stories or anything like that, get in touch with me there, and I'll get that on the website if we accept it. So please do get in touch with us pretty soon. Thanks for watching today's program. If you haven't subscribed or to our channel, please do right now. Hit that subscribe button. Blink, that's the subscribe button. Just hit that button and blast off into the literary field and enjoy your day. Have a wonderful afternoon. World Inkers. Hey, sports fans! New York Parrot has come out with a great new show for you guys, Sports with Rich. Broadcast time 10 p.m. Tuesday evening. Rich Mancuso with Robert Rizzo as a co-host. Sports with Rich is captivating, informative, and entertaining, and it will pertain to all American sports such as soccer, football, basketball, baseball, athletics, wrestling, you name it. Get rich information from Rich Mancuso on Sports with Rich. Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.